Today I'm going to talk about the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana. This is a historic plantation that helps us understand what life was really like for enslaved African Americans. What makes this place so different is that it focuses on the lives of enslaved people instead of the slave owners, which makes it really important to study. The Whitney Plantation is located in Louisiana along the Mississippi River. This area was known for having many plantations because the land was so good for farming. Warm climate and rich soil made it perfect for growing crops like sugar, but it also meant enslaved people had to work in extremely hot and uncomfortable conditions. The Whitney Plantation was built in the 1700s, during the time when slavery was a major part of the economy in the United States. Plantations depended on enslaved labor to make money. At Whitney, enslaved Africans were forced to work mainly in sugar production, which was one of the hardest types of labor at the time. Sugar production was especially brutal compared to other crops. It required long hours of cutting, grinding, and boiling sugarcane. This work was dangerous and exhausting, and many enslaved people became sick or injured. Because of how intense the work was, enslaved people on sugar plantations often had shorter life expectations. Life for enslaved people on plantations like Whitney was extremely difficult. They worked from sunrise to sunset with very few breaks. They were constantly watched and controlled. If they didn't meet expectations, they could be punished. Their daily lives were full of physical labor and strict rules. Enslaved people lived in small cabins that were often crowded and poorly built. They didn't have proper food, clothing, or medical care. Families tried to stay together, but they were often separated by being sold to different owners, which caused a lot of emotional pain. Even though conditions were harsh, enslaved people still found ways to resist. Some resisted by slowing down work, maintaining their cultural traditions, or trying to escape. Others showed strength by building communities and supporting each other through extremely difficult situations. What makes Whitney different from other plantations is how it tells history. It focuses on the enslaved people instead of the owners. There are memorials with the names of enslaved individuals, which helps give them identity and recognition. The plantation also shares real stories from enslaved people. These stories help visitors understand their experiences on a personal level. There are statues of children that represent enslaved kids, which makes the history feel more real and emotional. Whitney Plantation shows that slavery is not just about work, it is about control and dehumanization. Enslaved people were treated as property instead of human beings. At the same time, it also shows their resilience because they survived and resisted in different ways. This site forces people to face the truth about slavery instead of ignoring it. This landmark is still important today because it helps us understand how the history of slavery has shaped modern society. Issues like racism and inequality are connected to this history. Learning about places like Whitney Plantation helps people understand why these issues still exist. In conclusion, Whitney Plantation is an important historical landmark because it tells the story of slavery from the perspective of those who experienced it. It helps us understand the struggles, strength, and humanity of slave people. Remembering this history is important so that it can never be erased from the history books.